The clock on the microwave blinked 2:47 a.m., casting a soft green glow across the kitchen tiles. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the steady tick of the old wall clock that had belonged to my grandmother. I sat at the table in nothing but a t-shirt and sweatpants, one hand curled around a half-empty mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. My other hand hovered over my phone, the screen lighting my face in pale blue. No text. No call. No. I'll be late. Lydia should have been home by midnight. It was her bachelorette party, sure, but she wasn't 21 anymore. We were both 38. We had spent 8 years together building routines, learning each other's moods, mapping out a life. And she knew me well enough to know I wasn't the guy who slept easy when she disappeared into the night without a word. I told myself she was safe. Told myself she was probably asleep on her maid of honor's couch, heels kicked off, mascara smudged, surrounded by empty wine bottles and half-eaten pizza. But the knot in my gut wouldn't untangle. That's when the notification pinged. Not a text. Not a call. Facebook. I almost didn't look. Maybe I knew. Maybe some part of me had already braced for the punch. But I swiped it open anyway, and the photo filled my screen. My breath caught in my chest. Lydia. My bride-to-be. Sitting on a stranger's lap at Murphy's bar, her arms wrapped around his neck, her head thrown back in laughter that looked far too intimate. His hand rested firmly on her thigh, and even in the grainy neon haze of the photo, I could see the flush in her cheeks. The caption hit harder than the image. Last night single. No regrets. Clinking glasses fire #freedom. For a moment, the world narrowed. It was just a photo and the roar in my ears. I set my coffee down too hard, the ceramic mug cracking against the table. 8 years. 8 years of quiet sacrifices and plans, made in good faith. 8 years of fixing leaky pipes, saving for a down payment, talking about kids like we had all the time in the world. All of it dangling by a thread because she wanted a taste of freedom. The comments beneath the post blurred together. Fire emojis and laughing faces, her friends cheering her on like they were in on some private joke. One in particular froze me. What happens at the bachelorette stays at the bachelorette, winking face. My chest burned. My hands shook. But my mind was cold, sharp, steady in a way that scared even me. I screenshotted the photo. Then, without hesitation, I opened my own profile. Status, single. Caption, first night of freedom. And I tagged her. Tagged her friends. Tagged her father, Richard Hartwell, insurance executive, the man who never once thought I was good enough for his only daughter. The ripple was instant. Notifications exploded across my phone, buzzing against the table like a hive of angry bees. Comments poured in, some shocked, some gleeful, some supportive. My phone became a live grenade of gossip, and I just pulled the pin. By the time I heard the squeal of tires in the driveway, the post had already spread like wildfire. The front door banged open. Lydia stumbled in, heels dangling from her hand, her little black dress creased and her makeup streaked. She didn't look like the composed, ambitious woman I'd asked to marry me. She looked like a stranger. Her eyes found me at the table, and she froze. You! Her voice cracked, raw with fury. What the hell did you do? I didn't stand. I didn't shout. I just turned the laptop toward her, the photo bright on the screen, framed by hundreds of shares. What did you do? I asked. Her jaw tightened, and for a split second, fear flickered behind her defiance. Then it was gone, replaced by venom. It was a joke. She spat. You're blowing this out of proportion. God, Eli, you're so damn insecure. I leaned back in my chair studying her. Studying the way her hands trembled when she thought I wasn't looking. Studying the way her eyes darted away from the photo, as if it were a loaded gun. You sure about that? I asked. The silence stretched between us, taut and dangerous. And somewhere deep down, beneath the betrayal and the fury, I knew this was only the beginning. Lydia didn't flinch under the glow of the laptop screen. She folded her arms across her chest like a barricade, her lipstick smudged into something closer to war paint. "You're pathetic, Eli," she said, voice sharp as glass. "Dragging our business into the gutter for everyone to gawk at. You embarrass me. You embarrass my family." The irony almost made me laugh. Embarrass her family? She was the one on a stranger's lap while her father's name sat on half the buildings in town. But I didn't laugh. I just closed the laptop and stood, letting the silence weigh heavy. 8 years, I said. 8 years, Lydia. And this is what I get. Her chin lifted. It was a photo. A stupid dare. My friends were hyping me up. It didn't mean anything. But her voice faltered on the last word, and I caught it, the tremor, the split-second break in her armor. I stepped closer. "Who is he?" Her eyes darted to the window, anywhere but me. Nobody. I'd spent enough time in the army to know when someone was lying. The sweat at the base of her neck. The twitch in her jaw. The body never hides what the mouth tries to. Before I could press further, my phone lit up across the table, buzzing with Richard Hartwell's name. Lydia lunged for it, but I beat her to the call. I hit speaker. "Elliot!" Richard's voice snapped through the air, cold and clipped. "What the hell is happening? My phone's been blowing up since 3 in the morning." "Explain yourself. Why don't you ask your daughter?" I said, not breaking eye contact with Lydia. "Daddy, don't listen to him." She cut in, her tone sugary now. "It was a joke. Eli's overreacting again." "A joke?" I said. "Tell him about Murphy's bar. Tell him about the man you couldn't keep your hands off." For the first time that night, her facade cracked. A pale flicker of panic crossed her face before she doubled down, her voice shrill. "He's lying, Daddy. It was nothing." Richard's sigh carried a lifetime of disappointment. "Lydia, enough. Come home. We'll handle this privately." The line clicked dead. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands. "You think you've won, Eli? All you've done is make yourself the villain." The front door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the hum of the fridge and the gnawing certainty in my chest. She was hiding something deeper than a drunken dare. By sunrise, the story had mutated. My phone was a riot of notifications, strangers weighing in, neighbors sending wide-eyed emojis, even old army buddies chiming in from across the country. And then came the knock. I opened the door to find Mrs. Carlin, 76, widow, notorious for her casseroles and sharper tongue, holding a dish wrapped in foil. "Such a shame, dear," she said, bustling inside uninvited. "But between you and me, I never trusted that girl. Too ambitious. Always out at the office until late, but funny thing, I'd see her car leave around 5, then return near 10. Curious, isn't it?" She set the casserole down and gave me a look equal parts pity and thrill. "Mark my words, Eli. She's been playing you." Her words sank in like a stone. I thanked her, though my throat was tight. When she left, I called the only man I trusted to give me truth unfiltered, Mike, my best friend since high school, bartender at O'Malley's. If anyone in town knew the whispers behind closed doors, it was him. He answered on the second ring, his voice already heavy with gossip. "Buddy, you broke the damn internet. Half the town's on your side. The other half's making memes." "Mike," I said, "I need you to look at something." I sent him the photo. A pause. Then a low whistle. "Damn. Look closer at that guy's watch, the cut of his suit. Eli, I've seen him before. That's not some random barfly. That's Troy Barron." The name thudded in my chest. Who the hell is Troy Barron? Regional manager at Hartwell Insurance. Richard's golden boy. Lydia's boss's boss. I gripped the counter until my knuckles whitened. Of course. The late nights. The sudden new handbags. The way she dodged questions about office happy hours. "You're telling me she's risking 8 years with me, for a promotion?" Mike's voice hardened. "For him. And if it's true, this isn't just cheating, Eli. It's career suicide. And it's not just about you anymore, it's about power." About leverage. I stared at the photo again. The expensive watch gleaming under the bar lights. Lydia's expression, careless, radiant, almost in love. The betrayal was no longer a theory. It was a pattern. And I felt something inside me shift. I wasn't going to let this rot fester in the dark. If Lydia and Troy thought I'd sit quietly and bleed out, they were dead wrong. This was my life. And I was about to start digging. The next 24 hours moved like a storm cloud creeping across the horizon, slow, inevitable, heavy with the weight of something waiting to break. I spent the morning pacing my garage workshop, tools scattered across the bench like soldiers abandoned mid-battle. My phone vibrated non-stop, texts from people I hadn't heard from in years, calls from family asking if the rumors were true, even a voicemail from an old platoon buddy that started with, "Damn, Eli, you okay?" and ended with, "Make them pay." But beneath the noise, one thought cut through everything: Troy Barron. The name lingered like poison. I couldn't get the image out of my head, the sharp suit, the smug grin, the way Lydia glowed beside him like a moth caught in a floodlight. By noon, my decision was made. I wasn't going to wait for more lies. I needed answers. At 5:30, I parked across the street from Lydia's office. The building loomed glass and steel against the dying sun, workers streaming out in waves of chatter and car horns. Then she appeared. Even from across the street, I recognized her stride, heels clicking, hair pinned back, phone clutched like an extension of her hand. But she didn't head home. She didn't even glance toward our neighborhood. Instead, she slid into her car and pulled onto the main road. I followed. The drive stretched tense and quiet. Every turn she made carved deeper into the truth I didn't want to face. 20 minutes later, she pulled into the Riverside Apartments, the kind of place with valet parking and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. I parked a block away and watched as she disappeared inside Building C. My pulse hammered in my ears. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I was about to convince myself I was crazy when the door swung open again. Lydia emerged, and she wasn't alone. He walked beside her, tall, immaculate in a charcoal suit, the kind of man who looked like he woke up with the world already in his pocket. Even from a distance, I knew. The jawline, the posture. Troy Barron. They slid into his BMW like it was routine. Like they'd done it 100 times before. And in that moment, the last of my denial cracked and fell away. This wasn't a mistake at a bar. This wasn't a joke. This was an affair, long, deliberate, hidden in plain sight. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room, replaying the sight of her walking out of that apartment. 8 years together, and I suddenly felt like I didn't know her at all. Around 3 a.m., I called Darius. He answered groggy but alert, the way only another veteran could. "Eli? That you? I need your help," I said. My voice sounded foreign in my own ears, low, rough, threaded with steel. "What kind of help?" "The kind you're good at. Surveillance. Background checks. Pulling threads until the whole damn sweater unravels." A pause. Then a short laugh. "Hell, you always did know how to pick fights. Give me 48 hours. The next morning brought a knock at my door. Sienna. Lydia's maid of honor. Her eyes were red, her hands clutching her purse strap like it might keep her from falling apart. "Eli," she whispered. "We need to talk." I let her in, though every instinct screamed not to trust her. She sank into a chair, staring at the floor. "I didn't want to get involved," she said. "But after last night, I can't keep lying." I leaned forward, my gut tight. "How long has it been going on?" Her voice cracked. 6 months. Since the company retreat. At first, she swore it was just physical. Said she still loved you, but she wanted excitement. She made me promise not to say anything. I sat back, my chest hollow. 6 months. Half a year of dinners, inside jokes, lazy Sunday mornings, all while she was slipping away into another man's arms. Sienna's eyes welled up. I thought it would burn out. I thought she'd realize what she had with you. But then she started talking about calling off the wedding, about Troy leaving his wife once he made VP. That's when I knew it was serious. My hands curled into fists on the table. His wife? Sienna nodded. Yeah. He's married. 15 years. 2 kids. Lydia knows. She thinks she's different. Different. Special. The words twisted like a knife. Sienna's voice dropped to a whisper. She really believes he's going to leave them for her. The room tilted. Betrayal wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was delusion. Lydia wasn't only destroying us. She was destroying herself for a man who'd already written her into the same tragic script he'd probably used before. And in that moment, something shifted in me. I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just angry. I was done being quiet. This wasn't going to end with whispered gossip and cold shoulders at the grocery store. No, if Lydia and Troy wanted to play with fire, I was going to make sure the whole town saw the blaze. And I knew exactly where to start. 2 days later, Darius called. His voice carried that clipped efficiency I remembered from deployment, the kind that meant he dug up something ugly. Your girl's been busy, he said without preamble. I've got hotel receipts, texts, even video. 6 months, twice a week at the Riverside Inn. He pays cash, but she's sloppy. Credit card charges, lingerie stores, dinners. It's all here. I sat in silence, the weight of it pressing down. Part of me had been clinging to the idea that Sienna exaggerated, that maybe Lydia had been caught up in something fleeting. But Darius had just put the nail in that coffin. What about him? I asked. Darius snorted. Troy's a walking cliché. Promises her the moon while drowning in debt. Mortgage, country club fees, private school tuition. Man's got a lifestyle he can't afford, and Lydia's just the latest escape hatch. He's not leaving his wife. He never will. The truth was gasoline poured over already smoldering coals. Send me everything, I said. When the email landed an hour later, I opened it like a man unwrapping a bomb. Photos of them at the hotel, messages that read like second-rate romance novels, Lydia gushing about running away together. Every word was a knife. But the deeper cut came from the timestamps. While I was fixing broken pipes, saving for the wedding, planning our future, she was at a hotel with him, writing lines like, "You make me feel alive again." Alive. As if the 8 years with me were some kind of death sentence. I slammed the laptop shut, the echo rattling through the empty house. By Friday night, I needed air, so I met Mike at O'Malley's. He poured me a beer before I even sat down, his eyes scanning my face. "You look like hell," he said quietly. "Feel worse." He waited. He always did, never pushing, just letting silence work its way until the words came out. "Darius has proof. Everything. It's been going on for months." Mike cursed under his breath. "So what now? You going to bury her?" I stared at the beer, the foam settling into nothing. She already buried herself. But him? Troy? He thinks he's untouchable. That's the part that sticks. Mike leaned closer. "Careful, Eli. Men like that, they've got lawyers' connections. You swing too hard, it might come back on you." I met his eyes steady. "You know me. I don't swing unless I'm sure it'll land." Still, his warning lingered. Because it wasn't just about exposing them anymore, it was about what came after. Once you light a fire in a small town, you can't control where the flames spread. The pressure didn't just come from them. It came from the people I once called friends. Saturday, I ran into Dave Morrison at the hardware store. He didn't smile. Didn't nod. Just squared his shoulders like a man rehearsing for a fight. "You should have kept it private," he said. I frowned. "Private?" "She was screwing her boss behind my back." "Yeah, and now the whole town knows it. You turned her mistake into a circus." I let the words hang in the air. "So I should have just married her and kept quiet? That's your advice?" His jaw tightened. "You embarrassed her." Embarrassed all of us. That's on you. I realized then it wasn't just Lydia and Troy who wanted me silent. It was the whole circle, people who'd rather protect appearances than confront the rot beneath them. You sound like a man who's afraid his own skeletons might come out, I said, stepping past him. He didn't answer. But his silence said enough. That night, Lydia showed up at my door. Not furious this time. Not defiant. Just desperate. You've ruined everything, she said, eyes wet, mascara streaked. Troy lost his job. My father barely looks at me. You've destroyed my life. I almost laughed, but the sound stuck in my throat. Destroyed? Lydia, you did that yourself. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. She shook her head, gripping the doorframe like it might hold her up. You don't understand. I love him. Something in me cracked, not from pain, but from clarity. I finally saw her for who she was. Not the woman I'd loved, but someone so blinded by ambition and fantasy that she'd burn down everything real for a man who saw her as a pastime. You love an illusion, I said quietly. And sooner or later you'll see that. But by then, it'll be too late. Her face twisted, a mixture of rage and sorrow, before she turned and stormed off into the night. I stood there long after she was gone, the cool air spilling into the house. The stage was set. The town buzzing. The lies piling high. And in my gut I knew the next move would decide everything, whether I drowned in their betrayal or made damn sure they drowned in mine. The fall festival smelled of cider and wet hay, the kind of small-town tradition that made tourists swoon and locals roll their eyes. Normally, I would have been one of the locals, drinking too much coffee while watching kids wobble through sack races. But today, the square felt like a stage. I'd seen the whispers on Facebook. The sideways looks at the hardware store. The half-smiles that weren't smiles at all. My so-called friends were circling, eager to paint me as the villain in this story. They wanted a spectacle. Fine. I'd give them one. The drizzle turned the pavement slick as I made my way to the bandstand. A local country group had just finished their set, laughter and chatter buzzing through the crowd. I caught sight of Lydia near the cider tent, her black coat pulled tight, eyes scanning for me. Dave Morrison stood nearby with Tom and Mark, their heads bent together like conspirators. My chest burned with calm fury. If they wanted me broken, they were about to find out what it meant to break the wrong man. I climbed the stage, nodding to the organizer who handed me the microphone without a question. I tapped it once, and the sound cut through the chatter like a gunshot. Afternoon, folks, I began, my voice steady. For those who don't know me, I'm Eli Griffin. I've lived in Millbrook my whole life. Built my business here. Served overseas. Thought I knew what loyalty looked like. The crowd stilled, the drizzle pattering against tent canvas. I felt their eyes, phones lifting like 100 glassy witnesses. But lately, I continued, I've been painted as unstable. Vindictive. A man who couldn't keep his own house in order. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hands steady. So I thought maybe it's time we talk about truth. The speakers crackled as I played the first recording, Dave Morrison's voice, clear as a bell, arranging a pill deal in Portland. Gasps rippled through the square. Dave's face drained of color, his wife clutching his arm like it might anchor her. Next, I said calmly, cueing the second file. Tom Bradley's voice filled the air, laughing with his secretary about hotel rooms, about keeping secrets from his wife. I watched Susan Bradley's face harden, her hand flying to her mouth. And then came Mark Chin, casually discussing embezzling from his own company to cover gambling debts. The crowd buzzed louder now, a wave of whispers and accusations. These are the men, I said, my voice cutting through the noise, who called me bitter. Who said I went too far? Who tried to turn this town against me? I'll let you decide who the real villains are. The silence was thick enough to choke on. Then Dave shoved through the crowd, his voice hoarse with rage. You son of a bitch! He lunged for the stage, but the crowd held him back. Tom followed, face red, fists clenched. You're dead, Eli. And Mark pulled a knife. The crowd screamed, scattering as he broke through the line of bodies, blade glinting under the gray sky. My pulse slowed, instincts snapping into place. He slashed once, wild, the knife catching my sleeve. I grabbed a folding chair from the stage and blocked his second swing, the steel screeching against metal. With a twist, I trapped the blade, yanked it free, and sent him sprawling with the chair's edge across his jaw. Tom charged next, but years of muscle memory guided me. I pivoted, hooked his arm, and sent him crashing to the ground. Dave tried a sucker punch, but he hit my shoulder instead of my face, and I answered with a clean shot to his ribs. Seconds stretched like hours, the chaos collapsing into silence when the three of them lay groaning in the mud. And then, applause. It started hesitant, one clap, then another, until it rolled across the square like thunder. People shouting, phones recording, 100 voices rising. That's how you handle liars! I turned slowly, finding Lydia in the crowd. Our eyes met, her face pale, trembling. I stepped down, handed her an envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. Photos of Troy with his wife and kids at Disney World spilled out, alongside the lease for a new house in Florida. He didn't lose his job, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. He got transferred. And he took his family with him. Her mouth fell open, tears streaking her cheeks as the truth settled. She'd burned her life for a man who never intended to save her. You destroyed me, she whispered. I leaned close, so only she could hear. No. You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights. The crowd roared again, but this time I didn't bask in it. I walked through them, each step deliberate, people parting like water. Behind me, I heard the wail of sirens. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time in months, I felt lighter. Not victorious. Not whole. Just free. The sirens faded hours ago. The festival square was scrubbed clean by rain, though pieces of it still lingered in the air, like smoke after a fire. A toppled chair here, a smear of mud there. And the silence, heavy, like the town itself, was holding its breath. By Sunday morning, the story had already outrun me. Videos of the confrontation filled every timeline. Strangers dissected my every word, slow-motioned the fight, debated whether I was a hero or a thug. My face was everywhere, on the local news, on gossip blogs, even on a national morning show where two anchors shook their heads and said, "Well, that's one way to end an engagement." I should have felt vindicated. Should have basked in the justice of it all. Instead, I sat on my porch with a cup of black coffee and the kind of ache that doesn't dull quickly. Because revenge is fire. It warms you in the moment, but leaves nothing but ash once it burns through. The fallout came fast. Dave Morrison? Arrested. Pills don't forgive easily when they're found in your glove compartment. Tom Bradley's marriage cracked open like an egg in front of the whole town. Susan kicked him out before the police even finished filing Mark Chen's embezzlement charges. As for Lydia, she vanished into her father's house. I heard she quit her job at the firm, though the whispers say it wasn't voluntary. Her name had become poison in boardrooms where appearances mattered more than truth. And Troy Barron? Word spread he never missed a beat. Florida sun, white picket fence, wife smiling beside him like she hadn't noticed the trail of wreckage he left behind. That's the cruelty of men like him. They slip into new cities like shadows, leaving others to choke on their dust. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. For the first time in months, I thought about myself. Mike came by a week later, 2 six-packs under one arm and his grin trying too hard. "You're famous," he said. "Half the town's treating you like a legend. Other half's treating me like a warning," I answered. He cracked open a beer and leaned against the porch rail. "Maybe both can be true." We sat in silence a while, watching the sky burn pink above the rooftops. Finally, he asked, "So what's next?" I didn't know. For 8 years, my life had been built around Lydia, our future house, our future kids, our future everything. And now all of it was rubble. But sometimes rubble clears ground for something new. I think," I said slowly, "I'm done living small. Done waiting for life to happen while I fix other people's messes. Mike studied me, nodding. About damn time. The following morning, I went into my workshop. Tools lined the walls, silent witnesses to the man I used to be. I packed away the wedding invitations still stacked in their unopened box. I tore down the calendar that still had our days circled in red. Then I started over. Piece by piece, I rebuilt the shop, not as a handyman's refuge, but as something more. A place to create, not just repair. To build, not just patch holes in leaky ceilings and broken promises. It wasn't about Lydia anymore. Or Troy. Or any of them. It was about me. One night, I drove down to the river, parked near the bridge where the water reflected the town lights like shards of glass. I stood there, the cool air stinging my lungs, and let the sound of the current drown out everything else. I thought about the man I'd been, quiet, steady, reliable. The man who'd kept his head down, who'd believed love was enough if you just worked hard and stayed true. Then I thought about the man who'd stood on a stage, unafraid, and exposed rot in front of everyone. A man who refused to let betrayal define him. Somewhere between those two versions of myself, I felt the stir of something new. Not bitterness. Not pride. Strength. As I turned back toward the truck, I caught my reflection in the glass. For the first time in a long time, I smiled, not the smile of a man who had won, but of a man who had survived. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't just break you. It carves you open, shows you who you really are. And standing there by the river, I knew I wasn't the quiet handyman anymore. I wasn't the man who lost. I was the man who walked through fire and kept walking.